If you're in Australia and have any interest in spiders at all, then chances are you've come across this chart or some variation of it at least once in recent memory. It's basically the Australian equivalent of the fish poster that can allegedly be found hanging in every New Zealander's shed. Especially in Australia, misinformation about spiders prevails among the general populace, to the point that I'd pretty confidently say that it's a safe bet to preemptively assume almost anything one reads or hears about them online ranges from sensationalism to flat-out falsehoods. Unfortunately, albeit predictably, this widely shared identification chart falls firmly into that ilk. One immediate red flag is the fact that it appears to have been created by a pest control company, for whom, of course, perpetuating fear and aversion towards spiders would be an ideal means by which to gain customers. This chart is so riddled with errors that, with every renewed glance I take, new problems I had not yet noticed seemed to materialise before my eyes. And honestly, it's difficult for me to even decide where to start. But I think that before we discuss the information provided about any of the particular spiders shown here, it'd be worth taking a look at the 3 risk categories presented. The naming of the topmost category isn't something I take much issue with, though I would have personally titled it medically significant instead of deadly dangerous, as in the grand scheme of things, no spider in Australia or elsewhere is truly dangerous, especially provided common sense precautions are taken. Even funnel webs can be rendered almost completely harmless by simply not touching them. The middle category is where things get a little iffy, titled painful bite, venomous, poisonous. First up, I'll go on the obligatory venomous versus poisonous rant. Venom is injected, poison is ingested. Spiders are not poisonous. Meanwhile, calling a spider venomous has next to no value when determining the risk it poses to a human being. With very few exceptions, such as the members of the family Uloboridae, spiders are all venomous to some extent, so classifying a spider as venomous really doesn't narrow things down much at all. It'd be like classifying a fish as aquatic. Furthermore, venomous does not equate to dangerous. The vast majority of spiders possess venom that is so mild and delivered in such minute quantities that its effects on humans are negligible. And when coupled with the fact that spiders are almost universally passive, inoffensive animals that bite only as an absolute last resort, most spiders, venomous or not, are practically harmless. Personally, I'd say potentially painful bite, but not medically significant, would be a more apt heading for this category. Certainly, I'd ditch the poisonous label. Then there's the final category, the low-risk spiders. I don't really have any grievances with how it's titled or anything, but I do think it's worth mentioning that were this chart to be a more comprehensive display of spiders from the specified regions, the low-risk category would be enormous, comprising the massive majority of spider species. So now let's go over some of the spiders featured here and see how well they fit under the given headings. The Sydney funnelweb, Atrax robustus, is a spider whose placement in the highest risk category is something I'd certainly never argue with. It does have the capability to kill a human being, though the likelihood of a bite being lethal or even requiring antivenom is frequently overstated. Combine that potent venom with a generally defensive temperament, and you have a strong contender for the title of Australia's most dangerous spider. Thankfully, aside from their venom, funnelwebs don't really have much else going for them. I definitely get the feeling they were picked on a lot in sports class. Might explain the bad temper, and the fat ass. The redback spider, Latrodectus hasseltii, is yet another species that does deserve to be placed in the highest risk category, though just like with the funnelwebs, the lethality of their bites is rather drastically overblown. Not to mention the fact that, as far as temperament goes, redbacks are little wimps more often than not. Now we arrive at one of the more egregious placements on this chart, Lampona, the white-tailed spider. There's a lot of scary anecdotes revolving around these spiders, harrowing stories of hyper-aggressive monsters in miniature capable of inflicting horrific flesh-rotting bites. However, clinical studies concerning confirmed white-tail envenomations, as well as studies of the venom composition itself, have uncovered zero evidence to support such terrifying tales. And temperament-wise, they're just another spider. Not long ago, I filmed myself taking a self-inflicted bite from one, and I found myself about as underwhelmed as I was the first time I saw a funnel web trying to run. What I did not find underwhelming was the predictable stream of comments by some of the less informed members of Australia's population accusing me of presenting misinformation, typically employing a rather excessive usage of caps lock and no shortage of spelling errors. I'm just saying I'd be a little more willing to lend an ear to the people sharing scary anecdotes about spiders if they didn't consistently write like a bizarre combination of an angry preschooler and a 70-year-old conspiracy theorist on Facebook whenever their tales are met with skepticism. So, unsurprisingly, the white-tail spider goes right down into the low-risk category. Now onto the painful bite category. Here, by far the biggest error is the placement of mouse spiders. Mouse spiders from the family Actinopodidae are considered to be the closest relatives of funnel webs, and, perhaps unsurprisingly, have a very similar venom. So similar, indeed, that funnel web antivenom can effectively treat mouse spider bites as well, and placing them in the same risk category as wolf spiders and black house spiders is, quite frankly, asinine. Admittedly, mouse spiders do have a strong propensity to dry bite, with very few cases of severe envenoming being recorded, and nor are they known to be responsible for any human fatalities. They're also such cumbersome, lumbering creatures that they make even the funnel webs look like prime athletes by comparison. In spite of the aforementioned factors greatly dampening the overall risk they pose, due to their venom, any suspected bite should be treated as a precautionary medical emergency, and thus a placement in the medically significant category is warranted. Aside from the mouse spiders, the line between the painful bite and low risk categories is pretty blurry. None of these remaining spiders are even close to being dangerous in any way, and there's a bit of overlap in terms of how their bites may affect humans. A heavy envenomation from an extremely stressed or aggravated huntsman or orb weaver could very well cause worse symptoms than a quick nip from a wolf or house spider. I may be inclined to move trapdoor spiders up into the intermediate risk category, as while their venom is mild, their large fangs in conjunction with a strong bite force can cause substantial mechanical damage, and some species may have very defensive temperaments. Having said that, I honestly think only two categories, medically significant and low risk, are necessary. But the placements of certain spiders on the chart is not the only issue. The small text at the top states that the depictions shown are to scale, and therefore reflective of the spider's actual sizes relative to one another. And that opens up a whole new can of worms. Namely, in what world are mouse spiders bigger than both funnel web and trapdoor spiders? So now that we've patched up the sizes a little, let's talk about some spiders that have been omitted from the chart, but deserve a placement nonetheless. Spiders are an extremely diverse group of animals, and even within the confines of the regions that this chart was made for, there exists a seemingly boundless array of species. So I'm by no means suggesting that this guide provide an exhaustive coverage of all spiders in the Greater Sydney region. If it did, it'd probably end up so big that you could use it as wallpaper. Nevertheless, I feel as though a couple noteworthy groups of spiders deserve to be featured. First of all, the genus Hadronychi. When it comes to funnel webs, Atrax robustus gets all the recognition, leaving little room under the spotlight for the most diverse and widespread of all the funnel web genera, several members of which are found around the Greater Sydney region. And it'd be worth including Hadroniki on a spider identification chart for the simple purpose of providing an example of the variation that exists within the funnel web family. Namely, the distinctive pointed spur on the second leg pair of male Atrax robustus is often deemed to be a defining feature of funnel webs, likely a result of the fact that the aforementioned species is the sole funnel web that the general populace are widely aware of. However, many Hadroniki species lack anything resembling this feature, so contrary to popular belief, the absence of the telltale leg spur, while it may rule out Atrax, does not necessarily eliminate the possibility of a spider being a funnel web. Another major omission, this time from the low-risk category, is none other than the most speciose family of spiders on the planet, the jumping spiders. Considering this chart is supposed to focus on medically significant and common spiders from the region, failing to include some of the most regularly encountered spiders anywhere in the world is quite the blunder if I do say so myself. And on that topic, the family Pholcidae, sometimes known as daddy longlegs, a common name they share with another group of arachnids, are also omitted from the chart in spite of being one of the most frequently encountered household spiders in the country. One final issue the chart suffers from is what I'll call taxonomic inconsistency. The medically significant spiders shown are mostly specific species, Atrax robustus and Latrodectus hasseltii, for example. Meanwhile, many of the spiders shown towards the bottom of the chart represent not individual species, but whole genera or even families that may contain tens or hundreds of separate species apiece. This skews the proportions of each risk category, making the medically significant spiders appear to comprise a far greater portion of spider species than they actually do. I'm not entirely sure how I would fix this, but I think it's an issue worth mentioning either way. So that just about brings this video to a close. Before I draw the curtains, I'd like to welcome all my new subscribers that presumably came from my review of Life on Our Planet. I've been wanting to make more videos about prehistoric life for a while, and that video was the first one covering such a topic to actually perform well for me. I'll definitely start uploading paleo content more frequently now that I have good reason to suspect that a decent portion of my audience are here for it. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I filmed myself receiving an intentional bite from a white-tailed spider. If that interests you, then feel free to check out the full video here. And if you enjoy my content, then I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed as well. Thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all next time.